And I've been thinking about this ever since we were at the RFDC show. Who done it? What happened to the gorilla?
That's a tough topic.
He's going to get teary-eyed on this one.
There are theories.
Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be. And actually, when this thing actually happens to drop, we're here back again with another episode of ChatGTM. I'm Michael Beck, and my co-host here is
Chad Horn. Great to be
still
here.
Stays the same.
Michael.
Nice to meet you too, Chad. How many times have we met with each other?
I think this is number 12 or 13 officially. Unofficially, and we're probably in the 20s or 30s.
Yeah, I know. So many pickups. I feel like the guy from 51st States. Hi, I'm Tom. And we're starting fresh all over again. So instead of talking over him like he's not in the room, because I'm going to do this because I want to put pressure on our provider for the Squadcast. It makes a wonderful solution that allows us to do our Squadcast. We used to have a green room option, and we used to be able to put our people in the green room while we talked about them and invited them up on stage. But right now we have to pretend that Andy Freivogel with the awesome glasses isn't in the room with us, but he is. So everybody, welcome Andy Freivogel with Science on Call to the ChatGTM podcast. Our first appearance here. I am so excited.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. That simulated applause is something that I really crave. Because the last time I was on a stage where there was an opportunity for applause, there were 9 people in the audience,
Oh Lord.
And they were all members of the other bands, and I'm convinced they were just being polite and trying to sneak the rest of their gear back to their cars.
So. Sounds like the last day of a conference.
A little Pelosi clap?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Well, welcome, Andy. I'm just going to say it out loud. Like, there's people in the industry that are out there, and there's influential people, and there's people with gravitas, and there are the ones that are like, and then there's Andy. And there's only a few people.
Right. None of those other categories. No gravitas, no influence.
No, you are your own. You are your own thing that incorporates the best of all those things. But you are your own authentic thing. I love it. I love the glasses. I love the look. I love that you and your partners and spouse have this cool look with the glasses. I want to up my game. You actually inspired me to get new ones and try to embrace my glassness because my eyes have been shot over the last couple of months because I'm 54 and it's just dropping. But dude, you
golden years, right?
they're amazing. 50 is the new 20. But dude, you have such a great sense of style, and I have not talked to one person in this industry has ever said anything other than glowing comments about you. That's hard to do.
True story.
Yeah.
Well, that is super kind. But let's talk about that for a second. You can like hold up. You give me the countdown when you need me to stop talking about this. But already,
you're good. Go ahead.
No, so I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Well-to-do,
like Schaumburg,
Hinsdale.
Okay.
Yeah. So you tricked me into saying it. But I grew up there. Fairly affluent in a homogeneous suburb.
Yeah.
And I was surrounded by lots of opportunity. We wanted for nothing. My father was a very successful trial attorney at the time and things like that. And so kind of had it all, but it was like a very preppy and, like I said, very homogenous suburb. And so it was like everybody was wearing Izods. Everybody was, it was just, it looked like you were at like a boarding school wherever you went. And there was something in me that I don't think makes me special or different. It's just didn't really click with that vibe.
Yeah.
And so I did what a lot of affluent kids did. When I got into high school, I fell in with not just like one of the wrong crowds, but like all the wrong crowds. Like,
so you guys were out by the tree off campus smoking weed.
Not smoking. That wasn't me, but definitely like there was the smoking section out in the parking lot. Right, and that was like the kids that were like in the black leather jackets and like that, like the long hair and stuff like that, that are out there.
The
They're
Hessians. Yeah.
crushing darts and Mountain Dews before school and things like that. And then I had like my old school, like the preppy kid friends, and they were cool and stuff. I even knew some of the jocks. I played soccer for a little bit. I wrestled for a little bit. I quit a lot of sports when I was a kid too. I would try
Yeah.
stuff out and find a reason not to be good at it. Maybe because I wasn't good at it. But then I joined the high school radio station, and I had a radio show,
Oh,
and all of a sudden access to lots of records, surrounded by
yeah.
other people that are really into music. And there was one kid who turned out to be kind of a legendary graphic designer in Chicago who just passed. His name was Jason Pickelman. He was really influential. He was a couple years older, but one day he said, like, "Hey, my friends and I are gonna go see bands play downtown Chicago. Do you want to come along?" And so I went along, and like I went and saw like 9 hardcore punk bands play for like $3 at like the Central American Social Club, which was like on the second floor. It was usually a dance hall for Serbians, and things like that. But I started to get into that scene, and that's when I started to kind of experiment with like, hey, I don't have to be like the polo shirt,
Yeah.
khakis kid my whole life. But I never really got like too nuts with it. Like I got a goofy haircut once or twice, but frankly, it was I matriculated through a bunch of jobs like after college and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
had to wear khakis. I had to wear a button-down shirt, all that. But then all of a sudden, COVID hit. Everything was remote. I could do whatever I want. And so I didn't have much in the way of style other than I wore the occasional band shirt. But like
Yeah.
I remember it was 2021. I was going through some kind of crisis, and another founder that I reached out to, who has since exited. He's brilliant, and he's half my age and 20 times as smart. But I was on a call with him. I was like actually sitting in the park. I was I was in my car, but I was in a park, and I'm like, dude, I need some help. I need to know what to do with this company, blah, 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 blah. And he had on these amazing white glasses, much cooler than these. I'm like, dude, where did you get those glasses? He's like, I got them on Zenny Optical. And I was like, all
Zenny
right.
Optical.
And so like I ordered them that week. It's like these frames were like $29, and it was like I basically mail ordered my mojo. As soon as I got the glasses, then all of a sudden like I became white glasses dude, and
You
I
got
had
your
to
brand.
apologize. I had to apologize to that founder because he's like, I don't even wear my white glasses anymore because everybody says you're the white glasses dude. Yeah.
Love it.
But it was like
Love
my
it.
Bane moment. It's like nobody knew me till I put on the glasses. Or
You
something
never
like that.
know. No,
Yeah.
yeah, you put on the uniform for the first time, right? And now this is
And
you.
but it's like also I found out that we all exist in a community of restaurant operators, and then restaurant tech company people that sell into that community. And you know what? Everybody's pretty chill and without pretension. Like you can be who you want to be in this community, and
Yep.
that's pretty exciting to me. And it's something that I project to the company, and it's because I want everybody to feel that way. I'm like, I want to find out who you are, and the best way to do it is just be yourself without pretension, because we'll get a lot more done together if you can feel good about that and if you feel accepted about that. And that's really important to our culture.
Boy, that I think tees up perfectly a good transition point. So Science on Call, right? Like you made this company. How long ago did you start?
So, Science on Call launched in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
but our roots were in a company that one of my co-founders, Louisa, who's our star COO. Everybody knows Louisa. Like in Chicago, you walk around like Science on Call. You're like, oh yeah, Louisa's company. Like they didn't even know me. And it's just because she's super charismatic, super smart. Everybody loves her. Um, but Louisa and I started our first company at the end of 2014, and it was a boutique IT consultancy focused on brick and mortar businesses. So, like, wouldn't it be cool if we're the IT people for like the record shops, the coffee shops, the shoe stores that like we like to hang out at?
Mm-hmm.
Let's start that. And so we did that together, and we operated that business for about 5 years, just doing projects like, hey, you need someone to help fix your Wi-Fi, or do you need advice on what point of sale to use, or are you
Right.
trying to move some of your systems to the cloud, things like that.
Right.
And so we'd go knocking on doors, looking for projects, hanging out at cool places because that's where we wanted to sell. But
Yep.
what we found was started to get lots of inbounds from restaurants. And part of it was we had a relationship with the Apple business team because they knew us. Like they knew that I had worked with them when I was in Intelligentsia Coffee previously.
Mm.
And they would send restaurants to us. And then all of a sudden, we developed a little bit of a reputation. We landed our first big hospitality customer in 2018. And then by 2019, we noticed two things. One was we were spread a little thin because we did not have a narrowly defined vertical that we were addressing. We had,
Boy, that's important.
yeah. But also, we realized like, wow, restaurants have a lot of technology. They don't really have technology people working behind the counter. Wouldn't it be great if we could just focus on this? So of course, like the geniuses that we are, we decided at the end of 2019 to fire all of our non-restaurant customers, which queued up a really interesting time 3 months later in March of 2020. Now, this was part of a pattern of sacrifice. We always made big moves when we felt we needed to. We followed our gut, and something good would always come after. Like, for example, Louisa was still holding down side hustles in 2018
Right.
when I said, hey, I need a little more help, and you're amazing. If I could get you, if I could get you to just commit to this full time, I realize you're going to have to sacrifice your side hustle because that actually pays better than what we're paying right now. But she did it. And of course, all of our revenue, like I had to divide more of that up between two people. So it was hard for us as a company at first, but we landed our first big company a month later. Same thing in 2019. We fired all of our non-restaurant customers. So we took a huge cut in revenue right away. But we were invited by Gordon Food Service to join our first technology accelerator program, which resulted in our first institutional capital.
Oh, wow.
And it gave us just enough money to convince Ken, our third co-founder and CTO, to leave his gig and come join us and start building Science on Call together, which we launched in the beginning of 2020. And then 3 months later, the pandemic hit, but on the same token, we grew out of that. Like all of a sudden, we were like the janitors of the digital revolution. People really needed us to fix the things that were going to allow them to succeed. They were going from 10% off premise to 90 or 100% off premise ordering, and they needed somebody that understood like how to operate the switches to make sure everything still worked. And so that was an opportunity for us, and it was an opportunity for us to see firsthand all of the other problems that we could solve for restaurants. So
very cool. So Andy, you're going to be familiar with so many different ways restaurants try to solve tech support. For all the things. Like, what are the most common ways restaurants are getting it done today, and what does that look like? And then how are you guys different in changing things up for them?
Yeah, could you restate that what are the most common ways?
Restaurants are trying to go about solving tech support, right? IT tech support across all their technologies they're responsible for, making sure staff aren't pulling their hair out, customers are having a good time. We're working with multiple vendors. I mean, do they try to staff internally to support that? Do they just outsource it to the vendors? Other than, and not starting with the customers that aren't your customers yet, right?
Yeah.
How are they trying to go about this?
It really depends on the size of the operation. And so there are a lot of single unit or kind of SMB type businesses. Maybe they've got 3 locations or something like that. And that's where our roots were. Those were the people that we worked with at first, and in some cases still do, but it's not where we deliver the most value. But in those instances, it's a patchwork of like, my brother-in-law comes every 2 weeks and takes a look at the network and does this for us. And then, our general manager spends a lot of time on the phone with whoever. They just kind of make it work, but it's usually they've got like some kind of outside IT stakeholder. But occasionally you'll run across an SMB where actually the owner is a former technology person or had a lot of experience in a larger business. And so they're very comfortable with technology. And so they make it work. That stuff doesn't really work when you get to beyond 3 locations. It's because all of a sudden you've got, let's say, 5 restaurants or 10 restaurants. Even if they're all the same concept, you're starting to get hit with like, so-and-so calls at 10:30 a.m. because this printer's offline. At noon, someone sends you an email and says, we can't log into this account. At 2 o'clock, someone says, our whole POS is down, what's up? And it's like the broad swath of issues that can occur become too much for a single person to handle.
And it's not the CEO.
It's not, well, sometimes
or
it
the
is.
owner. Well, it shouldn't be. It's scale. It shouldn't be. Right.
It should be. When you hit 5, you need to have a consistent resource. And that's an area where we start to deliver a lot of value. Now, as a lot of restaurant groups climb to 10 locations, they might start to have like that single full-time IT stakeholder. But
Mhm.
guess what? The restaurants are open 90 hours a week. Are you
Mhm.
going to expect for that person to be available 90 hours a week?
Yeah.
Because even if it's a single day part concept, they can have problems happen at midnight, you know? And so even a 10 location restaurant group or thereabouts with a full time IT stakeholder, it becomes too much for that person to manage effectively. Even if it's not like a bunch of heavy lifting, it's just the
Yeah.
sheer volume of requests and the speed with which you need to respond in order to have an impact. Because when things are broken in a restaurant, the team is only telling you when it's affecting their job, their ability to generate revenue, their ability to retain their teammates because they're like, uh, Andy's going to quit if one more thing goes wrong with the POS. I can just tell. Like, that's a source of tension. And in a world where restaurant employees are only staying between 70 to 90 days on average, in some cases, you want to reduce that friction as much as you can. So, traditionally, people are either using that outside IT resource that might not
Yeah.
even understand restaurants, or they've got an internal teammate who's spending all their time on the phone with technology stuff, even though that wasn't what they signed up to do. Like the general manager never says, like, I'm going to apply for this job because it says here I get to spend 45 minutes a day on hold with X POS system. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
So as you get to there, people are hiring internally, but there is a shakeout occurring. We work with some brands that when we started with them, like a 50 unit, 60 unit brand, they had 5 full-time IT people. All right. That's a lot of salary. Like even
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
junior IT help desk assistant, it's not nothing. Then you got payroll taxes and
Yeah. All
benefits on
costs
top of
a
it.
$500,000 easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But but now that customer has 2 full-time IT people because they've deployed our platform solves for about 85% of issues, and so those two, that VP of IT and the other IT person, they're focused on bigger initiatives now. They're focused on
Mhm.
moving the ball forward, not just playing catch up or maintaining. And so I think there's a parallel between, I think, the way IT should be staffed in mid-market and beyond restaurant groups and what we're seeing in what a thoughtful deployment of AI is. All right. You think you can outsource all of this, but in fact, it makes sense to have an internal stakeholder to own the vision and propel the bigger initiatives forward. All right. Same way with AI. We want to believe that, like, oh, AI, I'm going to use ChatGPT to do my entire job. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
work.
No.
You need a mix of about 20%, 80%, or maybe 10%, 90%. You need 10% of human thought and, empathy and consciousness to tell the AI how to be useful.
Yeah. Here's
And
who
then
you
you
need to
get to
be to
leverage that horsepower. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so you took us through the paces of how you started things. I love the idea of science on call, right? And by definition, we know you're on call, and you shared a lot about that. How'd you get to the name? Just science in there.
It's kind of a weak sauce story. So like when I decided I wanted to run out and do my own thing,
Yeah.
and before I ran into Louisa, who's made it real, like having somebody to back me up on all the stuff I knew I was not going to
Yeah.
be good at, the digital side of things, and she was great at it. Um, I thought it would be cool to have a company called Retail Science. So I
Hmm.
went to go register their domain.
Yep.
Obviously, somebody had it, and they're like, "Oh, you can buy it for $3,000." I'm like, "I don't have $3,000."
Right.
And so I'm like, "Tell you what, we're going to call this company Science Retail because that domain is available." And so that was the name of our first company. It was called Science Retail. And then when we launched as in our current iteration, um, people were just calling us science. Like
Right.
something be broken, the team would say like, "Hey, call science. This isn't working,"
Mm.
and it seemed to resonate.
Yeah.
Like we'd show up and be like, "Oh, hey, it's science." To us, it was funny. For me, it was really funny because in the beginning there was not a lot of science to this. A lot of this was faith and
Yeah.
guessing.
Yeah.
You
There's
know,
theory, right?
and so there was some irony baked in already. In fact, we were going to have our slogan was going to be "Put your faith in science." Um,
Oh, that's
but
funny.
Isn't it though?
Yeah,
But
that's got like a deep cut to it if you think about it. I love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a way to address like man's arrogance that they think they have it all figured out. Like that, like
Yeah.
science is the same. Like scientists can only do what they do because because there's a little bit of arrogance there, which is a
Yeah.
belief that this
This is
data
right.
and these systems add up, so that's the answer. But it's
Yep.
like, guess what? There are situations where that just it doesn't add up.
Yeah. There's gremlins, right? You can't explain
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
But one day we were just riffing on stuff together with Ken and Louisa, and like we're on Slack messaging each other, and all of a sudden, like Ken just posts scienceoncall.com domain available, and we're
Boom.
like, oh, that's perfect because like we had become more of a help desk. In those early days, we were doing a lot of project work, a lot of on-site stuff. I had
Yeah.
a tool bag, I had a service vehicle, and all of a sudden we were kind of we were sliding into our first iteration pretty confidently, which is like we're a help desk for restaurants, and a lot of people still perceive us that way.
Yeah.
But that made sense, so we stuck with it. We meet investors, customers, people like you every once in a while. Like, how come science? And that's the long, boring story behind it.
I don't think
And
it's that boring.
yeah, well, it hasn't become compelling enough for us to say like, oh, we need to rebrand.
Yeah.
Eventually, science with a small s will sue us and say you can't call yourself science anymore. You're not scientific. Stop calling your team scientists. And like, fine, we'll call ourselves something else then.
That would be funny if they actually came at you for that.
I'll wear that subpoena like a badge of honor.
All day.
I'm getting sued by science. Yeah.
So Andy, I don't think we hit on exactly how you do help desk, tech support, whatever you want to call your category. What unique science you bring to the equation that makes it really work really well. And I know AI is part of that mix, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about your process.
Yeah, just to lay it all bare. When we began, this was a very human driven business. Our abilities to provide support were determined by the number of people and their willingness to work for a modest wage and answer the phone whenever it rang. But over time, we started first to leverage the existing data that we had. So the first day someone called us and said, "Hey, I'm a restaurant. We use Toast, and the drinks are showing up on the hotline instead of the beverage, printer or whatever." We're like, "Okay, we'll figure out how to fix that." First time we didn't know how to do it, but we figured it out. But guess what? The second time someone called about this, we had a canned resolution ready to go. And so like we just had to look like, oh, this has happened before. Find the steps that we went through. Those were early days. And so it was all about running out into the fire, getting burned once or twice, but documenting what you did to succeed and then making sure you knew how to share that with other teammates the next time that same problem occurred, like through knowledge base articles and things like that. And for a couple of years, we told ourselves a really good story is that like eventually there's, AI is going to come along and it's going to want all the data we've been collecting by solving these problems thousands and thousands of times successfully and say like, build something that'll just fix this for them based on the resolutions we've already, successfully executed.
Right.
Well, in fact, we raised our seed round in 2023 and we were joined by our current head of product, Ron Hoffner, who had built automation and conversational AI products in healthcare before. And, places where you can do things like, hey, how do I get a flu shot? And it's be like, well, it's Andy. We know that by his phone number. And so we know he's on the Gold Plus plan and there's a Walgreens 10 minutes from him. So I'm going to send him a link, say you can book an appointment here and it's $20.
Right.
All right. Well, we're like, what if we just swap all that out? So instead of Andy's on the Gold Plus plan, it's like Andy, he's using Toast and it's not a flu shot that he needs. He needs his printer fixed. And here's how we fix that. And so we leveraged that same scaffolding to use all the data that we had collected through years of resolving this stuff with human effort to start to take advantage of the maturity of conversational AI products as well as automation. So it used to be you call and say like, hey, Andy, our printer's offline. I'm like, all right, let me walk you through this. Like look on the back and see if there's a light and so on and so on. Now what happens is you text us and it says, it's Michael. I know he's at store number 13.
Here's the stack, right?
Yeah, they're using Toast. That means when he says my kitchen printer's offline, it's an Epson
Mm.
U220B, and start the conversational AI talk track
Mm,
based on this piece of data here that says this is how you solve that problem.
smart.
Or it used to be people would call and say, "Hey, Andy missed the bus. We need to turn off online ordering for the next 2 hours because we
Mm,
don't have enough people to keep up with orders." You're
got
like,
it.
okay, I will log in to DoorDash. I will mark your store as as closed or whatever, and then let me know when you want to be back live.
Mm.
So we used to do that with human effort. Now someone can text us, they can email us, they can use WhatsApp and say, "Hey, we're in the weeds. Turn off our store for 2 hours." And we actually have built robots that will understand that request and then execute it just automatically at that point.
Well,
Agentic AI is that what we're talking about, right? The
And
new buzzword.
yeah,
order, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. And they remember to turn it back on in 2 hours because a lot of human beings don't.
People
And
will
it
not.
costs you a
Yeah.
lot of
We
money.
lost money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Saw that a lot in the
Wow.
past.
Well,
And so I just gave you a tour of like old school, like Andy with a tool bag, to today we're building robots.
That
I
was
love that.
perfect.
That is awesome. And it sounds like, you put all together with a couple of things. And you mentioned when you were putting together the business, how you shared a vision with your, now COO, right?
Yeah.
And asked her to make the big leap.
Yeah.
And the leap is something, you go to somebody that already has it. I've been through this, and Chad has too. And, when somebody says, "Hey, I don't know what we have, but I think we have something good. Will you follow
Yeah.
me?" Right.
Yeah.
And I think that anchors to some things that are fundamental that we were talking about before we got on the call, which is, values and culture, mission, purpose, all the things that make us feel good about business outside of the check. Right.
Yeah.
And back to this uniqueness of you, I think that you also, ask you, I'm like, hey, what are the words on your wall? I think that's an interesting talk track because if you go to any company, almost most of them, they have these words on the wall and some live them and
Yeah.
some don't. Some are aspirational. Some have been there and they forgot why they wrote them.
Right.
But you shared with us some very specific things before we got on. I think that's really interesting because as founders and other founders listening, you might wonder, well, is culture important? I have a bunch of remote people. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's probably more important, right? Because you have to be deliberate with remote culture. You have to find times to be cultural,
Yeah.
right? But you mentioned an acronym BOSS. What is BOSS to you?
Boss is the mnemonic device that we use to remind the old dude, because I am by far the oldest person in this company, what our four value statements are.
Yeah.
And before I launch into that, very briefly, Louisa took the leap because
Yeah.
she was an entrepreneur from the get. Like, I was leaving an intelligentsia. I'd worked for other people for 25 years. She was graduating from DePaul University. She and my wife knew each other because they're both artists. Louisa
Okay.
started her first business when she was 11 years old. So she was someone that just like had this, like, she had this internal like burning ambition, just like, give me an opportunity that I can crush,
Yep.
and I will run after it. Just
Love that.
fearless,
Yeah.
So, but we knew we were pretty aligned around a lot of things from the beginning. And a lot of this, like, she's an artist. I'm married to an artist. Like, we share similar cultural affinities, I think. But our culture grew between the two of us, and we carried that into, from our first company, we carried that into Science on Call. And it was in the culture that evolved before us, with all the contributions from all our teammates, is where we saw
Right.
those value statements. And those value statements, boss, are: be human, own your limits,
Own your limits.
seek solutions, and support a growth mindset. And I'll give you quick examples of each one. Be human. Guess what? Maybe I don't like the way Michael's doing something today, but I should probably remind myself that, hey, maybe Michael's going through something. Maybe instead of going to the manager and saying, I don't like the way Michael's doing this, maybe I just go to Michael and say, hey, can I do anything to be helpful?
Were you okay?
It's yeah, thank you. So easy. All right. That is like the minimum threshold for humanity, in my opinion. And so we seek to enforce that.
And you're also saying you're giving them the chance to solve the problem without the embarrassment of the people being invoked, which causes more problems sometimes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bless you for calling that out. Own your limits. Listen, I know you want to stay on this ticket. I know you want to keep trying to solve it. But guess what? You are going to encounter something every day that you may not already have the resources to solve for. You probably need some help.
Yeah.
No one just throw your hand up and say, "Hey team, I'm stumbling on this one thing. Can anybody help me?" It's really like we want to make that easy for people. We don't expect everybody to know anything. And as we increasingly move the workload towards our digital
Yeah.
workers, these robots that we built, we want people to kind of stretch out a little bit and understand like there are certain things I can do, there are certain things I can't.
Or what
Sometimes,
shouldn't belong to you
yeah,
anymore, right?
right. Well, ultimately, will not. Like our humans that were solving problems for the last 4 years,
Yeah.
in the future, they're rapidly becoming managers of our digital workers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, own your limits. Admit when you just can't do it, and don't feel bad about it. And then seek solutions. I always respond better as a teammate when someone says, "Hey, I realize this thing is broken.
And
Can we riff on how to resolve this together? I have some
yep.
ideas."
Yeah.
As opposed to, "Well, this sucks," or "It sure would be nice if somebody didn't do that." Like, come on,
Yeah.
you
Anybody
know?
can poke holes, right?
Anybody can poke holes, but we're excited about teammates who want to collaborate on solving those problems. And
Yeah.
it's like the same thing, like I never want to blame anybody for anything, you know? And that's kind of central to our business because we sit in the middle of the tech stack. When restaurant employees reach out to us, they don't want us to say, "Oh, yeah, that's Toast's fault or that's DoorDash's fault," or anything like that. Nobody wants finger pointing,
That's the
and
worst.
maybe it's not their fault.
Yeah.
What they want is a solution.
Or
And
ownership.
so, yeah, yeah, exactly. Accountability, you know, and then finally support a growth mindset. Everything that we are doing here should not just be for the company to get big. It should be for everybody to get big.
Yeah.
It should be for the customer to get big. Like, hey, if we can solve this problem faster, guess what? They're making more money because there's
Yeah.
less downtime, or
Yeah.
there's a teammate that can focus on their other job as opposed to this thing. So,
Yeah.
like, focus on helping the customer, focus on making advancing yourself. And it doesn't necessarily need to always be like, if I do more of this, I'll get this other job title. It's like, I'll expand my horizons. I'll have more stuff on my resume. Maybe this isn't what I'm going to do for my whole life, but I want to be constantly developing. Because you know what? If you're on a team full of people who are constantly be giving opportunities to develop, then guess what? Your company is already getting better.
Yeah.
And if you're confident in your culture, then you don't have to worry about, well, are they all going to leave and get better jobs? Well, some people do, and I
God
applaud
bless
that.
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you built them up. But in this, I think that's part of our job as employers is to make sure they leave more valuable they were than they came in the door.
Yeah, and I know this is like semantics. I don't look at myself as an employer. I look at myself as a teammate.
I love that.
And it's not me doing something benevolent to develop them. It's me having the opportunity to partner with them as they develop themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
well, it's actually a privilege.
I'm
right?
not correcting you. I'm just
Enhancing
that's
it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think originally I said, like, yeah, I don't want to be a boss. Like, I want to be a teammate. I want to be part of a crew. And I want to slide to the back and get out of the way as much as I can. Like, bosses kind of stay in the way.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
And
we never
sometimes
say
I don't
anybody
do a very
works
good job.
for us, right? We never say anybody works for us. We work with them.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Chad, did you have anything? Because we're coming up on the end here. I know I have one last thing I really want to get to. It goes so fast, right?
The thing I got to ask you is because you have such a perspective on the restaurant tech ecosystem that's unique, right? You're seeing multiple technologies in multiple brands from the support side, right? And that doesn't always that's not in the spotlight, right? That's kind of, and you're behind the scenes, at scale. What do you see? So based on that experience, what would you advise? Let's start with brands. What would you advise brands to look for, do when they're vetting a technology partner, one of these vendors that they might not have thought of, but you would know it's very important?
Well, it's really easy. It's don't ask them. Don't ask a sales rep. Sales rep's going to steer it the way they want it to go. I'm sure I've been guilty of the same thing. Go to their website, find out what their support mechanism is, call their support number, and wait for someone to answer. and think, is this the experience I want my team to have when I'm not around and they need help? You know. Additionally, I would say, who's your least happiest customer? I'll understand that they're going to be ticked off, they're going to be mad that I call or whatever, but I want to hear the experience that they're having,
Yeah.
because you know what? Maybe it's better than a lot of the experience that I've already had. Like, that's what I would do. Is say, like, let me talk to someone who's not happy. And yeah, they're going to game it. They're going to connect you with somebody who probably is happy, but at least you'll give an opportunity to get some real talk, because that's what you want to know about.
Yeah.
And don't be the first to adopt anything ever.
Interesting.
Don't launch
That's
anything
experience
on a,
talking
Yeah.
there.
don't launch anything on a Friday, and don't launch anything on a Monday. Tuesdays are a good day to launch new technology.
Wisdom.
Or
I love it. So my surprise question I had,
yes,
and I've been thinking about this ever since we were at the RFDC show. Who done it? What happened to the gorilla?
that's a tough topic.
He's gonna
there
get teary-eyed on this one.
there are theories, but you know what? I would rather talk about who fixed it.
Let's talk about the gorilla thing that turned into something, right? And so, what was the positive outcome of that? Let's say that instead.
It was very disappointing for us to show up to our booth that our mascot, who's a gorilla with a Nokia cell phone,
Yep.
was missing. And I'm like, who would steal this? Like,
In
I
the
know
middle
people
of
go
a
to trade shows.
professional event, right? In the middle
Yeah.
of a professional event attended by a very high level people, right?
Yeah. Like, who stole this? Like, the senior VP of development for this brand? Like, come on. It's like, I know you all go to trade shows just to fill your luggage with swag to give to your kids. I get it.
That
But if
clearly
there's
wasn't swag.
if there's only one of them, it's
Yeah.
not swag. It's
Yeah.
mine. So stay
Yeah.
away from it.
Yeah.
But one day I was meeting somebody at a local coffee shop in Oak Park, Illinois, where I live. It was Pete Riggs, who is the CEO of Pita Pit.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he had driven the Pita Pit van from Idaho all the way to Chicago. And he
Wow.
graciously included me on his agenda. And I'm sitting in the coffee shop, and Pete comes walking to the front door, and he hands me a gorilla with an actual Nokia cell phone. It was like, I rock the Nokia stuff. And he restored balance in the universe by procuring an even better gorilla with a bona fide cell phone.
I love
and
that.
handed it to me. And like, I felt like the clouds part.
And I think you guys can be friends forever because of that act.
I think we were already going to be friends forever, but that just proved it. Yeah.
It cemented it, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, after that show, I was like, holy crap. And I was actually looking for gorillas and sending it. And I messaged him like, I think I'm going to get you one. Like, did you take it? And I was like, no, it wasn't me, but I'd sure like to help you fix it.
when you said there was going to be a surprise question, I'm like, oh no, what fact has he unearthed about me that I never had to explain to people?
That's for next time after we've earned a more scary surprise. There's no scary surprises. So we're at the end of the show here, but just for a quick wrap up, where are you going to be next? Where can people find you?
Like between myself and my esteemed teammate Maya Techley, we will be making appearances in and around Las Vegas. I'm doing some travel to visit with some prospects and all over the place. Probably be at RLC and a few others. But I would tell anybody that trade shows can be absolutely great if you have that in your budget. Get out there, do it. But sometimes you just got to go where your community is going to be. And so stay in touch with people, find out where they're going to be, and make yourself presence, because this is a business about relationships. It's about real personal relationships.
Yep.
It's not about cold calling a million people, asking if they'll buy your product. Restaurant operators are too smart for that. They need to know that they need to know that you're a human being. And they need to know that, you're one of them. You're part of the group. And the only way to make yourself part of the group is show up at places like, MERTEC, Restaurant Leadership, National Restaurant Association
That's
show.
In your backyard. Are you going to be at that?
That's in our backyard. We're actually planning a very exciting event with another company. So
awesome. Awesome. Yeah. We'll definitely have to talk more about that. I know that we'll be doing a live podcast from that show with our partners from the restaurant show, late night restaurant show, Jay Ashton in concert with the NRA. And so you're
Oh,
more than
great,
welcome to come
great.
by our table and spend some time with us. We'd love to be able to amplify you while we're there. The time goes too quickly. We have to have you back on again. And we keep running into you in almost every conversation we're having with our clients. And we're so excited and thankful that you're out there doing what you do and the way that you do it.
Well, we're very fortunate to know both of you, and any conversation that we managed to find our way into, we feel very lucky to be there as well. So thank you for that.
Right back at you. Well, hey, Andy, it has been fantastic, and we will definitely make sure to find a way to have this happen again, because there's a lot of subjects we didn't cover and I want to talk about with you. So thank you for
Great.
this time today. But
All right.
everybody, thank you for joining us today, Chad. You know, you're always my great stoic sidekick here. Not stoic, just he's thoughtful. I talk a lot.
Sometimes I'm stoic. Sometimes I'm out talked by Michael. Sometimes I'm just tired. You know, it depends.
Michael.
Yeah, love this conversation, Andy. And everybody needs to know how amazing you guys are as partners, right? So we talk about partnerships in the industry. You guys are world class in that regard as well. So I want to give you and Maya your props there. And so till next time, man. Can't wait to see you in the field.
All right. Thank you both. Have an amazing day. Yeah. Take care.
All right, everybody. This has been ChatGTM signing off. We'll see you on the other side. We'll be at MERTEC coming up and all the shows coming up this year. So stay tuned. Thank you, guys.